After my mother passed, I uncovered that the HOA had stolen 2,100 acres of our family farmland through fraud while she fought cancer. But they had no idea I controlled the region's power grid as the Cedar Ridge Power Authority supervisor. What would you do with that kind of leverage against people who stole your dying mother's legacy? I never thought I'd return to Willow Hollow, not after 15 years away. Yet there I was, standing on the creaky porch of my childhood home, clutching the keys to Mom's farmhouse and fighting tears. "This is yours now," said Mr. Hargrove, Mom's old lawyer, handing me a thick folder. "All 2,100 acres of Bennett family farmland, just as your mother wanted. Generations of history right here." The wind swept through the wheat fields, the stalks swaying like they were paying respects. Mom had fought so hard to keep this place alive while battling cancer. I traced the faded green railing she'd painted every spring without fail. My phone buzzed. Work again. As the regional supervisor for Cedar Ridge Power Authority, my bosses weren't thrilled I'd taken emergency family leave. But what choice did I have? Mom was gone, and someone had to handle her affairs. I was unpacking when a sharp knock rattled the screen door. A woman with sleek auburn hair and a smile that didn't reach her eyes stood there, two men in polo shirts with the Silver Pines Association logo behind her. "You must be Margaret Bennett's son," she said, extending a manicured hand. "I'm Lydia Harper, president of the Silver Pines Homeowners Association. We were so sorry to hear about your mother's passing." I shook her hand, confused. "Thanks, but what brings the HOA out here? Mom's farm isn't part of your development." Lydia's smile tightened. "That's actually why we're here. There are some covenant violations we need to discuss." "Covenant violations?" I said. "This farm's been here since 1915. Your neighborhood's what, 12 years old?" 14, she corrected. "And while that may have been true once, your mother never contested our annexation of this property. According to county records filed 5 years ago, this land falls under our jurisdiction now." My stomach sank. "That's impossible." Lydia handed me an official-looking document. "These papers were filed while your mother was the owner. As you can see, the Silver Pines Association's boundaries were legally expanded to include this property." I stared at the signature, Mom's, but something felt off. "There's a mistake," I said. "My mother would never agree to this." "Nevertheless," Lydia continued, pointing at the barn, "those farm vehicles violate our storage ordinances, and that fence needs to meet code. You have 30 days before fines start." As they walked back to their sleek SUV, I noticed survey stakes with blue ribbons along the edge of our wheat field. They weren't there at Mom's funeral 3 days ago. That night, I couldn't sleep. Mom's paperwork littered the kitchen table: tax forms, medical bills, land deeds from my great-grandfather. Something gnawed at me about Lydia's documents. Why would Mom sign away our land? I pulled out her locked filing cabinet, using the key from the chain the funeral director had given me. In the bottom drawer, beneath old photo albums, I found a leather-bound journal with "Keep Fighting" on the cover. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were detailed accounts of her battles with the HOA, harassment over her tractor being visible, complaints about the chickens waking neighbors, threats over the wheat height. Worse were notes about land surveys, property markers moving overnight, HOA members trespassing to photograph violations. The final entry, dated 3 months ago during her last chemo round, read, "They're taking advantage of my illness. I don't have the strength to fight anymore. God forgive me for failing to protect what my father and his father built." I wiped tears away and kept reading. Mom had gathered evidence: photos of original boundary markers, copies of real property lines, even recordings of HOA conversations. The last page had a sticky note: "Eliza Monroe, attorney. Call when you're ready to fight back." Outside, a car crept past, headlights off. I peeked through the curtains, Lydia Harper, snapping photos of our property from her BMW. Sleep didn't come. Instead, I compared Mom's real signature on bank statements to the one on Lydia's papers. They didn't match, not even close. By dawn, I knew 3 things. The HOA had falsified documents, they'd exploited Mom's illness, and they had no idea who they were dealing with. "This is criminal," Eliza Monroe said, adjusting her glasses as she examined Mom's journal and the HOA papers. Her office was lined with law books and clippings of cases she'd won against developers. "These signatures don't match at all," I said, pointing out the differences. "And look at the dates. This one's from when Mom was in the hospital. She couldn't even hold a pen that day." Eliza nodded grimly. "The HOA has been pushing boundaries, literally, for years. They've been planning a luxury development called Crestview Heights on your western fields. Your mother fought them at every turn. So what do? File criminal charges for fraud and get a court order to stop any development," she said. "But I warn you, the Silver Pines Association has deep pockets and connections at City Hall. Lydia's husband, Nathan, is on the Haven County Zoning Commission. This won't be easy." My phone buzzed. A work emergency, a power outage in Sector 4. As Cedar Ridge Power Supervisor, I couldn't ignore it. "I need to handle this," I told Eliza, "but I want to move forward with everything you suggested." "I'll prepare the paperwork," she promised. "Meanwhile, document everything." Driving home to change, I spotted Mark Ellis, the HOA treasurer, hammering "no trespassing" signs 50 feet into our wheat field. I pulled over. "What are you doing?" "Marking HOA property boundaries," Mark said without looking up. "There's a board meeting tonight about developing this section. This is Bennett land. It's been in my family for generations." He smirked. "Not according to county records. Check the updated plat maps. Those documents are fraudulent, and you know it." "Prove it," he challenged. "We break ground next week." After fixing the outage, I went to the Haven County Records office. The clerk, Mrs. Carter, had known Mom. "I wondered when you'd come by," she said, her eyes sad. "Strange things happened with your mother's property records last year." She pulled up digital files. "See these lot boundaries? They changed 3 times in 6 months, each time more of your land became part of Silver Pines." She tried calling Mom, but Mom was too sick. "Who submitted these changes?" I asked. Mrs. Carter checked the logs. "All filed by Nathan Harper, on behalf of the Zoning Commission. Lydia's husband." "Can I get copies of everything, the original boundaries and these changes?" "Already made them," she said, handing me a USB drive. "Your mother helped my daughter get a nursing scholarship." I haven't forgotten. That evening, Lydia emailed me an official notice of community development plan. It outlined Phase 1 of Crestview Heights, 50 luxury homes on our western wheat field, starting in 5 days. I was about to call Eliza when my work laptop pinged. A system check flagged power capacity issues for new development in Sector 9, exactly where our farm was. Opening the utility maps, I realized something. Any major development here needed my department's approval for power infrastructure. The grid couldn't handle 50 new homes without upgrades. And who had to sign off on those? Me. My phone rang. "Lydia. We need to discuss fence height regulations," she started, "and those unsightly farm vehicles visible from Silver Pines Drive." "Actually," I cut in, "we need to discuss fraudulent land claims and forged signatures." She paused. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do. I've seen the real property records, Lydia, and Mom's journal documenting every HOA harassment while she fought cancer." Her tone shifted. "You know nothing about real estate law. That land is ours. We're starting construction next week. If you interfere, you'll hear from our attorneys." "Funny thing about new developments," I said calmly, "they need power infrastructure approval from Cedar Ridge Power Authority." "That's a formality," she snapped. "Usually, yes. But not when the regional grid supervisor has concerns about capacity or discovers fraud." Silence. "Who do you work for?" Lydia asked, her voice tight. "Cedar Ridge Power. I oversee the county grid, including Silver Pines." "You're bluffing," she said, but I heard the doubt. "The HOA meeting's tomorrow night, right? I'll see you there. Bring your husband." "We have a lot to discuss," property lines, forged signatures, and power requirements. I hung up. My phone exploded with texts from unknown numbers, HOA board members, I assumed. I ignored them, walking the farm's boundaries as the sun set, touching the soil my ancestors had worked. In the golden light, I could almost see Mom beside me, pointing out her first crop, the irrigation system Dad built, the spot my great-grandfather staked his claim. "I won't let them take this," I whispered. "I promise." The noise woke me before my alarm, roaring engines, snapping trees. I bolted to the window. Yellow bulldozers were tearing down ancient oak trees at the edge of my wheat field. 5 workers in orange vests moved around as Lydia Harper directed them. I called Sheriff Dawson while pulling on my boots. "They're destroying my property." "I'll be there in 10, he promised. I ran out in pajamas and work boots, waving my arms. "Stop. You can't do this." My heart pounded as another century-old oak fell. Lydia spotted me, smiling like she'd won a trophy, her lavender suit clashing with the muddy scene. "Good morning, neighbor," she said sweetly. "Beautiful day to start our new development, isn't it? This is my land. You have no right. Actually, we have every right." She tapped her clipboard. "The Silver Pines Association owns this parcel now." Sheriff Dawson's car pulled up, lights flashing. He stepped out, his silver beard twitching with irritation. "What's going on here?" Lydia handed him a folder. "We're beginning Phase 1 of Crestview Heights. All permits are in order." Sheriff Dawson flipped through the pages, squinting. I held my breath. "Ma'am, these permits are for Lot 142, he said. "County records show this is Lot 31, still registered to Bennett Family Farms." Lydia's smile faltered, then returned. "A paperwork mix-up. Our plans were approved months ago." "Not for the spot," I said. "This land has been in my family for generations." "Well," Lydia said, crossing her arms, "your mother signed it over. Perhaps you weren't aware." My work phone rang, the emergency tone. A power substation was down, affecting thousands. "I have to take this," I told Sheriff Dawson. "Please don't let them destroy anything else." He nodded. "I'll make sure they stop until we sort this out." I walked away, hearing Lydia's voice rise. "This is outrageous. We have deadlines." For 3 hours, I fixed the substation issue. Being the grid supervisor meant I couldn't ignore emergencies, even with my own crisis. When I returned, the workers were gone, but they'd left a mess: fallen trees, torn earth, nearly an acre cleared. Sheriff Dawson had stopped them, but the damage was done. These were trees my great-grandfather planted. My stomach churned. At the mailbox, I found papers taped to my barn and fence posts, red letters screaming, "Cease and desist." They claimed I was blocking community improvements and threatened fines if I didn't comply. My hands shook as I called Eliza. "They're trying to scare you," she said. "Don't remove those notices. We need to document everything." That night, I spread Mom's papers across the kitchen table: journals, farm records, land maps. In one journal, she'd written, "Lydia came by again about selling the West Field. Told her no. Later found survey stakes at the property line." Something's wrong. I opened my work laptop, pulling up the power grid maps for Haven County. Every home, business, and streetlight connected like a web. Silver Pines fed from Substation 8, the one I'd redesigned last year. My phone buzzed. A text from my friend Clara, who worked at the county clerk's office, found something odd in the land records. "Can we meet tomorrow?" I stared at the grid map. An idea formed. If the HOA wanted to play dirty, maybe it was time they learned who they were really dealing with. "Everyone, please take your seats. The monthly Silver Pines Association meeting will now begin," the secretary announced in the packed Willow Hollow Community Center. I stood in the back, watching Lydia Harper arrange her papers at the front table. She hadn't noticed me. My hands were sweaty, clutching my folder of evidence. Eliza Monroe stood beside me, along with Mrs. Larson, Mr. Tate, and Mrs. Ortiz, 3 neighbors who'd lived in Willow Hollow for decades. First item, the secretary said, updates on the Crestview Heights development. Lydia stood, her emerald blazer gleaming, a smug smile on her face. Despite minor setbacks, our luxury home project is moving forward. The Bennett property has been secured, and construction will resume next week. My blood boiled. Several board members nodded, homeowners whispering about rising property values. We also need to discuss enforcement actions against individuals interfering with community improvements, Lydia continued. Excuse me, I called, stepping forward. I'd like to address the board. Lydia's smile froze as heads turned. This is a closed meeting for members only. Eliza stepped forward. As legal counsel for the Bennett family, my client has the right to speak regarding claims about their property. The room buzzed. Lydia gripped the table. Fine. 2 minutes. I connected my laptop to the projector. My name is Evan Bennett, and I'm here to discuss how this HOA fraudulently claimed 2,100 acres of my family's farmland while my mother was dying of cancer. The room fell silent. That's a ridiculous accusation, Lydia snapped. Your mother signed over the property rights voluntarily. Did she? I pulled up a document. This land transfer, dated June 22nd last year, has my mother's signature. I clicked to the next slide, hospital records. That same day, she was in the hospital for emergency surgery. She couldn't sign anything. Gasps filled the room. A board member, Harold, leaned forward. Is this accurate, Lydia? Her face flushed. A misunderstanding about dates. It's not just one date, I said, showing more documents. Here are 5 agreements supposedly signed by my mother, each dated when she was in surgery, medicated, or unconscious. Mrs. Larson stood. I've known the Bennetts for 50 years. Their farm was here before your fancy houses. That land is theirs. Lydia banged her gavel. Order. This is getting out of hand. Eliza stepped forward. The Bennett family has filed complaints with the county regarding fraudulent practices and elder abuse. A criminal investigation is pending. Board members exchanged worried glances. Harold turned to Lydia. You assured us this acquisition was legitimate. It was. Lydia insisted, her voice rising. We've invested hundreds of thousands in permits. We can't stop now. I clicked to my final slide, a county power grid diagram. There's another problem. As regional grid supervisor for Cedar Ridge Power Authority, I said, placing my employee ID on the table, I've reviewed your development plans. The proposed construction would overload Substation 8, creating fire hazards. Nathan Harper jumped up. You can't use your position to block this. That's a conflict of interest. Actually, I said calmly, it's my legal obligation to reject unsafe infrastructure plans. Regulations require my department's approval for new developments. Your homes would need triple the current power capacity, upgrades that would take 18 months and cost millions, which neither the power company nor the county has budgeted. The room erupted. Homeowners shouted questions. Board members huddled, whispering. This is outrageous. Lydia screamed. You can't do this. I just did, I replied. Harold raised his hand. I move we pause all Crestview Heights activities until these allegations are resolved. I second, another member said. As the board voted to pause the project, I saw Nathan slip out, making a call, glaring at me. After the meeting, Eliza squeezed my arm. That went better than expected, but this isn't over. Lydia and Nathan have connections. They'll fight back. Let them, I said, feeling stronger. I have the truth on my side. Outside, Mr. Hargrove approached. Your mother would be proud. But watch yourself, the Harpers don't like losing. Driving home under a starry sky, I felt hopeful. The farm lights twinkled, welcoming me. Then my headlights swept across the yard, red spray paint on my barn. This isn't over. My front door was ajar. Inside, papers were scattered, Mom's journals, photos, farm records dumped on the floor. On the kitchen table, a typed note. Everyone has secrets. Even your mother. Even you. My hands shook as I called Sheriff Dawson. The war for Mom's land had just gotten personal. I woke shivering in darkness. Flipping the light switch did nothing, only my house had no power while Silver Pine's streetlights glowed. This wasn't an accident. My phone lit up with messages from friends. Emergency HOA meeting last night. Lydia said you're stealing electricity. They're coming for your land today. Be careful. I grabbed Mom's old flashlight and checked the circuit breaker, normal. Someone had cut my connection. I tried calling the power company, no answer. Going somewhere important? Lydia's voice made me jump. She stood at my fence with Mark Ellis and two men in suits. What did you do to my power? I demanded. We've discovered illegal connections from our development to your property, Lydia said loudly, as if performing. The power company is investigating. That's ridiculous. This farm has had legal power for 70 years. Lydia smiled coldly. Not according to the emergency inspection we requested. But we'll resolve this if you sign these new boundary agreements. Mark unrolled a map. New boundaries cut through my house. I noticed people filming a news van parked nearby. They'd planned the spectacle. Get off my property, I said through gritted teeth. Actually, Mark said, according to our latest survey. I drove to work to fix the power issue, but my office door was locked. My boss, Tom, waited in the hall, looking uneasy. I'm sorry, he said, handing me an envelope. You're on administrative leave pending an investigation into misuse of authority. What investigation? Allegations you've manipulated power access to force the HOA to back down on legitimate land claims. Nathan Harper brought the complaint to the board yesterday. My stomach dropped. Nathan's on our board? Vice chairman for 3 years, Tom said, avoiding my eyes. I sat in my truck, shaking with anger. They'd planned this perfectly, cut my power, tarnish my reputation, block my ability to fight back. My phone rang, an unfamiliar number. Is this the Bennett farm? A gruff voice asked. Yes. Who's calling? Jake Riley, Channel 6 News. We got a tip about illegal utility connections at your property. Care to comment? Engines roared in the distance. Through my rearview mirror, I saw 3 bulldozers with the Crestview Heights logo heading down my driveway, followed by armed security guards. I raced home, skidding to a stop. Sheriff Dawson pulled up. You can't let them do this, I shouted. He handed me a document. New emergency court order. Judge Carver signed it an hour ago. Judge Carver? He's Lydia's cousin. My hands are tied until your hearing next month, Dawson said quietly. But between us, something stinks. I watched helplessly as security set up a perimeter and bulldozers cleared my western field. News cameras filmed from the road. That evening, I retreated to Mom's storm cellar to think. I felt defeated, staring at her rows of preserves. What would you do, Mom? I whispered, tracing the wooden shelves she'd built. Behind a loose board, I found a hidden compartment, a rusted metal box. Inside were yellowed papers, original land grants, 1800 surveys, photos of my grandfather with county officials. One document made my heart race, a 1953 power grid agreement when my grandfather granted easements for rural electrification. A clause circled in red ink read, "In perpetuity, the Bennett family retains override authority for any utility modifications affecting their granted easements." Beneath were Mom's journals, accounts of HOA harassment, copies of threatening letters, recordings on flash drives. Her final note, always have a backup plan. Remember who owns the power lines running through our land. A crash overhead. I saw security guards through the cellar window, trashing my house, breaking furniture. I clutched the documents, understanding Mom's final gift. The HOA thought they had the power. They didn't. 3 news vans crowded the Haven County Courthouse parking lot. I clutched my briefcase with Mom's documents as neighbors, farmers, HOA members, and onlookers packed the halls. You won't win, Lydia hissed, brushing past with her lawyers. We've already started building on your land. My hands shook, not from fear, but exhaustion. I hadn't slept in 2 days, preparing with Eliza while living without power. Judge Harrington, a stern woman with gray hair, called the emergency hearing to order. This case involves serious allegations from both sides, she began. Mrs. Harper, your HOA claims rightful ownership of disputed farmland based on annexation papers signed 5 years ago. Mr. Bennett, you claim fraud and illegal seizure. Let's begin. Lydia's attorney approached confidently. Your Honor, the Silver Pines Association legally incorporated this abandoned farmland through proper channels. Mrs. Bennett signed these documents. He presented a folder. The current owner refuses to accept progress. Abandoned? I whispered to Eliza. Mom never left that farm until they took her to the hospital. Judge Harrington examined the signatures. These appear in order. Mr. Bennett, your response? Eliza stood. Your Honor, before addressing land ownership, we must resolve an urgent matter. My client's position at Cedar Ridge Power Authority was wrongfully terminated based on false accusations from board member Nathan Harper, who concealed his conflict of interest as husband to the HOA president. Who stands to profit millions from developing this land? Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Furthermore, Eliza continued, we have evidence the HOA cut power to my client's residence as intimidation. Lydia's attorney jumped up. Objection. These accusations are irrelevant to the land dispute. I'll determine relevance, Harrington said sharply. Continue, Counselor. Eliza nodded. Even if we set aside the land issue, Mr. Bennett has discovered documents that change everything. I approached with the metal box, heart-pounding, and removed the 1953 agreements. These power grid easement contracts, signed by my grandfather, contain a clause, in perpetuity, the Bennett family retains override authority for any utility modifications affecting their granted easements. I pointed to the section. This includes lines servicing all of Silver Pines. The Cedar Ridge Power attorney leaned forward, eyes wide. This means, Eliza explained, regardless of surface land ownership, the Bennett family controls power infrastructure crossing the original 2,100 acres. Gasps echoed. Lydia's face turned pale. Harrington studied the documents. These appear authentic. Counsel for Cedar Ridge Power. A man rose. Your Honor, our legal team reviewed these overnight. They're genuine and legally binding. We're withdrawing all actions against Mr. Bennett and reinstating him immediately with back pay. This is absurd, Lydia shouted, jumping up. Those papers are ancient. We have modern development plans approved by the county. Plans requiring utility approval, I said quietly, which, per these documents, needs my family's consent. Harrington tapped her gavel. Order. Mrs. Harper, control yourself. Eliza wasn't done. Your Honor, we have more evidence. During Mrs. Bennett's cancer treatments, the HOA harassed her and falsified documents. She opened Mom's journal. We have proof Lydia and Nathan Harper visited the hospital on days these signatures were obtained. I placed Mom's medical records beside the HOA papers. The dates matched. Furthermore, Eliza added, we have recordings. She played a clip from Mom's flash drives. Lydia's voice filled the courtroom. She'll be dead soon anyway. Just backdate the papers, and we'll deal with any kid who inherits later. Shocked silence fell. That's edited. Lydia stammered. We can prove it's not, Eliza said. These recordings were authenticated by 2 independent experts. Harrington's face darkened. Based on this evidence, I'm issuing an immediate freeze on all development activities pending criminal investigation. The sheriff will secure the property today. 3 hours later, I walked out into the sunshine. Reporters swarmed. How does it feel to take on a powerful HOA and win? Will you press charges against Lydia Harper? Will you restore power to Silver Pines? I raised my hands. My family has farmed this land for generations. We've always been good neighbors. I never wanted this fight. I just wanted what's rightfully ours. As cameras flashed, I saw Lydia being escorted to a police car. Our eyes met. She looked away. That evening, I sat on Mom's porch as Sheriff Dawson oversaw the removal of construction equipment from my fields. Eliza pulled up with takeout. "The DA wants to meet tomorrow about criminal charges," she said, handing me a burger. And Cedar Ridge Power's CEO personally apologized. "What happens to Silver Pines residents?" I asked. "Legally, nothing changes with their homes, but the HOA will likely be dissolved once the fraud investigation concludes." 6 weeks later, my farmhouse hummed with activity. Cedar Ridge Power crews installed new lines under my supervision. I'd been promoted to regional manager with a raise. The doorbell rang. Mark Ellis stood awkwardly on my porch with former HOA members. "We wanted to apologize," he said. "Lydia and Nathan convinced us you were blocking community improvements. We didn't know about the fraud." I studied their faces. "Come in. We should talk." Around my kitchen table, neighbors who'd been enemies shared coffee and honesty. Most had been misled by Lydia's promises of higher property values. "What happens to our neighborhood now?" asked Mrs. Foster, an elderly resident. "That's up to you," I replied, "but I have ideas." 2 months later, as autumn painted the wheat fields amber, neighbors from the farm community and former Silver Pines gathered in my renovated barn. Kids played on hay bales while adults discussed the new Willow Hollow Community Alliance, a democratic group replacing the dissolved HOA. Eliza joined me by the window, watching former enemies become neighbors. "Your mother would be proud," she said softly. Outside, workers removed the last Crestview Heights sign, replacing it with a wooden plaque, "Bennett Family Farm, EST 1915. "You know what I learned?" I told Eliza, watching fireflies over the fields Mom fought so hard for. "Real power isn't control, money, or fancy houses. It's standing up for what's right, even when you're alone." As dusk settled over my family's 2,100 acres, now protected by new conservation easements, I felt Mom's presence in every acre we'd saved together. The land would remain undivided, a living legacy for generations, and a reminder that, against all odds, justice finds a way.